And it's because I heard about this turtle that he was walking down an alley in a big city, and he was mugged by a gang of snails. So a police detective comes to investigate and went to talk to the turtle. And I said, "Can you please tell me what happened?" And the turtle looks at the detective all confused. He says, "I don't know. Everything happened so fast." I want to talk to you today about a fast changing world. You get it? Fast world, slow turtle, right?
You can't explain your joke. Come on.
Fast changing world. But it's a fact. This is the kind of world that we are living in. We feel sometimes that everything is changing around us. And it's a fact. We all have, all the time actually, obstacles, challenges, new things that we have to learn, things that we have to adapt to. And sometimes we hope that everything will stay the same. We wish we can stay in one spot comfortably, enjoying that moment. But that's not the way life works. Sometimes stay comfortable is not an option. Not because you did anything wrong, but that's because circumstances around us, they are going to come to disturb our comfort. And the faster we learn to recognize that reality, the better our chances to make it to the other side. And I heard once, it's kind of a Yiddish expression that I heard once from a rabbi. And the rabbi said, "Mechaye, mechaye, oi, oi, mechaye." That was the only thing the rabbi said. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, it said, if all you do in your life is to do whatever you can to stay on that mechaye situation. Mechaye means, how do you translate mechaye, Bill?
To bring back to life? To give life?
No. But in Yiddish, mechaye, it's like...
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a pleasant thing.
It's like a relief.
Relief, yeah.
Like a relief, like to be in a comfortable place. If all you do is to do whatever you can to stay in a mechaye, in a comfortable place, chances are that at the end, you will have an oi. But if you're strong enough to take the oi today, chances are you're building your life to have a mechaye tomorrow. So it's your choice. Do you prefer to have the mechaye today but an oi tomorrow, or an oi tomorrow and a mechaye today? And sometimes we have situations like that. Let's say that you're receiving the mail, a ticket. I don't know, you were driving through a red light, or you were speeding, and you get the ticket. What are you going to do? Well, you can pay it, which is an oi, right? You have to open your wallet. But then you're going to have a mechaye tomorrow. That's it. You paid it. It's done. Or you can put it in a drawer and forget that you got it. And you're going to have a mechaye today, but eventually you're going to get another letter, and now you owe even more money than before. That's your oi. And why I'm telling you this? Because these things, mechaye, oi, mechaye, came to mind immediately when I was reading this week's parsha. We know that the 12 spies were sent to the promised land. Rabbi Anibal explained a lot about that. But when they came back, 10 of them presented a very negative report. Why in this world did they do that? And I know sometimes people said, how can they do that with all the miracles that they experience? How could they? But you know what, let me tell you that right now. Miracles are useless. Miracles means nothing at the time of having faith or believing in God. And the entire Torah is a proof of that. All these people were having miracle after miracle after miracle, and nothing changed on their lives. Miracles, I believe, is, a little bit of faith today, but then tomorrow you're going to forget about that. If you really want to work on your faith, that's a long journey that involves your intellect, and it's a totally different process. Okay? At least that's my belief. That's my belief. And we can see it with the spies. So miracles, let's say, out of the picture. So why? Why they did that? Well, I believe they had nothing to do with miracles and a lot to do with attitude. It was all about their attitude or what they were thinking at the time that they presented this negative report. And the thing is, I believe, they wanted to convince the entire nation of Israel to stay where they were because they prefer to have a Mechaye moment instead of having an oi, what it meant to enter to the promised land. But they didn't understand that that Mechaye today will mean an oi tomorrow. And let's say, what was so comfortable where they were right now? They were in the desert after all. We've seen that they were complaining about the desert so many times, but yes, this is what happened. When you stay in the same place for too long, then we get used to it. We get comfort in the dysfunction of life. And we prefer to stay there over taking a risk to do something else. That's exactly what happened. They kind of got used to the manna falling from heaven. They got used to the sukkah. They got used to the pillar of fire at night, reminding them the presence of God and so forth. The other things that the rabbis explain is that the spies, they were actually leaders of the tribes. They have a special status within the context of the desert. But they learned, because remember, these people were slaves. They didn't know much about how society, how cities worked. For the first time, they entered to a real place with cities, with walls, with armies, with businesses and everything, and they realized that their little status that they got in the desert will mean nothing once they enter to the promised land. And they wanted to stay. They wanted to keep that little sense of that they were somebody. So what did they do? They tried to convince the people not to enter to the land so they will feel important for a little longer. In other words, they all had a bias, a reason, an own agenda to avoid entering to the new land. But this is where it gets interesting. Because when they presented this negative report, the one who spoke up and they said, no, guys, come on, we can do it. Well, at least the one that the Torah presented to us wasn't necessarily Joshua at that point. It was Caleb. Why is the Torah presenting Caleb and not Joshua? Because I believe Caleb, out of the 12, was the only one who didn't have an agenda. Even Joshua had an agenda. The other way. For Joshua, it was very convenient to enter to the promised land because he was already promised a leadership position once they entered to the new place. He was the next Moses. So you can expect, of course, Joshua wants to enter. He has a big reward waiting for him, but not Caleb. Not once in the Torah we read that he was promised anything once they entered to the promised land. He was the only one out of 12 who was able to put aside on agendas, biases, fears, what else? Insecurities, and to move forward. So I believe this parsha brings to our attention a character that sometimes we overlook, and that is Caleb ben Yefuneh. Because he is the one who embraced change without being promised anything for that. And that should be us. Because sometimes we know that staying where we are in life, it's not an option. We have to always try to evolve, to progress. For what? Sometimes there is not really an evident and explicit why, but it's an attitude. It's the attitude of wanting to always do something more, always evolve, always progress, like Caleb. And not staying where we are out of fear, out of insecurities, like the other spies. So, if there is something that we should remember as we read this parsha, is the problem with the spies wasn't much about miracles, but it was about attitude. They preferred to have a comfortable life today, even at a risk, to have a big, uncomfortable moment at the future. But Caleb is teaching us that sometimes we have to embrace discomfort today so we can have a chance to have a comfortable future. And remember, in life, if you don't progress, you always regress.